Welcome to the Accelerate Campfire. I'm Lyndon Bowen, and today I'm joined by an amazing entrepreneur. I truly hope you enjoy hearing their experiences and life path. Listen in. So that was a bit of a treat for our early birds. Let's formally get the event started today with our guest, Ziz Abdur-Ra'oof. Ziz is the founder of 4340 Coaching and Wellness. He's also a certified performance coach, speaker, author, and former NFL wide receiver. Ziz is a natural connector, recognized for building strong relationships predicated on communication, trust, and respect. He works to cultivate an environment of continued learning and development while coaching and championing clients to understanding their value proposition in a competitive world. Please welcome to the Campfire stage, Ziz.
Thank you.
So I think you foresaw this question. So it's won by the widest margin here. What was your first job, Ziz? The audience is really interested to know that.
So I was drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs out of college. So my first job was as a NFL player with the Chiefs.
Wow, that is amazing. So that's the you talking about being a transplant. That was the first thing that brought you out of Maryland, right?
Yes, yes. First time I lived out of the state for an extended period of time. Now here's one of the things that happened to me while in college. So I popped my Achilles in my fourth year playing football. So that happened in September. I didn't really start running again until April. And to be able to come back from that injury for me back then, because I'm kind of old, was a big deal. I didn't have the same speed that I had, but it to me it was more about just being able to overcome a major injury and get back on the field and be able to produce and then reach a childhood dream of being drafted by an NFL team.
I mean, that's amazing. Like, first of all, like that's what I mean when I say accomplished, guys. We have so many amazing individuals here in the collective. Um, Ziz, Alyssa wants to know, like, what was your favorite slash least favorite part of being drafted for the Kansas City Chiefs? I guess.
Favorite part. So it's interesting. So just to get into the mindset piece, not too much, but I'll delve a little bit into it. All of a sudden, these are individuals who you watched on TV.
Yeah.
You watch them, and all of a sudden now you're one of them, and then you're competing against them for a job. So that was a mindset trick I had to play on myself. So like, hey, you're here to earn a job. So the competitive part of me had to come out along with understanding the business of it all. Your body's involved. It's mental, it's physical, emotional, everything's involved. So what I didn't like was the lack of respect that they have for you as like the game just spits you out and chews you out. It just throws you away, so to speak. It's tough. It's rough because it's your body that's involved. And back then people weren't like, the money that individuals are making now, back then when I played, nothing even compared. Like a quarterback on our team, I don't think he probably wasn't even making $1 million. And I'm saying that so casually, like $1 million. Whereas now you have somebody like Patrick Mahomes who has a contract that's valued at the $500 million.
Yeah, he was just
so
you guys just made it
right,
last year.
Right. Well, the last 2 years they got crushed last year.
It's interesting. Alyssa was saying it's wild that your least and favorite like part of the job or applicant like it could be applied to many other fields, right? Like
Yes.
the whole idea of like being an imposter, the whole idea of you've been striving for this thing your entire life, and you're finally there, and it's time to act and move on that.
Yes.
What were some of the things going through your mind, like when you were pit, in that predicament, really?
It's interesting. I mean, I think if you like if I go back to high school, you think about there's competition. So I was a quarterback in high school, and when I was being recruited to go to the next level, they were like, okay, yeah, you're a quarterback and you can run, you can throw the ball, but we got this guy by the name of Boomer Esiason. We got this guy by the name of Frank Wright. We got this guy by the name of Stan Gelbaugh. So I don't think you're going to be playing quarterback here, but you could play this other position because you're a really good athlete. So early on, you realize like, yeah, I have some skills, I have some talent, but it may not be in the position that fits this team right now that I thought it would work. So the coach puts you in the position that's going to be best for the overall team. And if you apply that to business, so if you're running your own business and you have employees and you aren't going to hire someone, you want to hire that talent that fits the right position. And it's very much like Good to Great, Jim Collins' book. Get the right people on the bus, or get the right people on the team, and get the wrong people off the team.
Yeah.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers just got rid of AB, Antonio Brown, because he wasn't the best fit for them anymore. And that's what happens at the football level. So when it comes to football, or it comes to any sport for the most part, they're pretty quick to get rid of you if you don't work out. And that could be from a talent standpoint, it could be from a money standpoint. It's a lot of different things.
Team player,
yeah.
And
it's cutthroat. Yeah, it is, Leslie.
And since I'm particularly interested, like there's a lot of discourse on Discord and outside of Discord, about the athlete to entrepreneur pipeline. Um, what does that mean for you? First of all, do you think that there is an entrepreneur to athlete pipeline? And if so, what are some things that you think make those two worlds overlap in such a way?
I think now, actually, so yes, more so now than ever before. So if you go back in the old days when they weren't making as much money, so if we look at Dave Bing, that name might be familiar to those of you in my age group, but that gentleman built an unbelievable big business outside of playing basketball because he would work in the off season. So he would gain skills, business skills in the off season, and that business actually became bigger and eventually let his athletic career die. But essentially the competition, like, you're competitive, you love to compete and you want to get better. Here's the big one, I think. You're coachable. You're willing to listen. You can hear feedback. Feedback sometimes, like, we're constantly evaluated. Like, our practices were filmed, the games are filmed. When you watch a game film, like, there's a play where I caught the ball, I didn't catch it cleanly, so I got a minus for that. I didn't run the right route the way the coach saw it, so he gave me another minus. Now, I ended up scoring a touchdown, so I got an RBI play. So in one play, I got a great play, an RBI play, two minuses. So you get graded on every single play. So when in business, everything you do impacts the next day. So I do think there's some natural things that athletes do within the course of being an athlete that lends very well to being a business and an entrepreneur.
Yeah, yeah. And in particular, like you mentioned, this coachable mindset, right?
Yes.
How do you continue to cultivate that mindset? Particularly, when you may be the only person who is like truly experienced at what you do, right? Like you may be an amazing artisan, and someone may not be able to critique you, like too in depth with your skill set, but you still need to be open to criticism and growth. Like, how do you maintain that coachable mindset throughout everything?
Stay curious. That to me, that's why I like listening to people in other industries. So like someone like Alyssa who's on the chat, like she may say something and I'm like, I never thought of it that way. That's so interesting. And and then it just makes me think. So to me, the thing that has helped me the most is by staying curious. And when you also stay curious, you stay out of judgment. Sometimes I work with young people and they do something that they shouldn't have done, and you're like, huh, that was really interesting. What made you do that? And then they tell you, and you're like, okay, I can see how you got there, but let me just give you a little bit of things that can help course correct what you just did. So staying curious to me is one of the best things for all of us, and of course staying out of judgment. Whether it's judging someone else, judging yourself, or judging the events or circumstances that might be happening.
And you made this transition from being an athlete, to going out and starting your own coaching business and all the other many things that you do, writing, speaking, like name it. Um, like what was the first thing that you kind of brought on your on your journey, right, to being an entrepreneur?
For me, like one of my strengths is just relationships and building relationships. So I lead with that. I don't know if anyone's ever done the assessment. It's from Gallup. It used to be, I just went blank on it, but it's around figuring out like how you lead and how you connect. And I lead with people. I'm always curious about people. That's it. People are fascinating to me. So that natural curiosity. And if you think back, like for me, if I think back to my childhood, I was always a natural, curious young man. And, always trying to figure out, like I used to read, like in high school, I used to read the stock symbols. I don't know why. I don't even know where that came from. But that's the other piece is reading. So reading, being curious, um, talking to other people, being coachable, asking other people, like, hey, what's your advice? Getting a mentor. That's probably, like, I'll say something that I think people who look like you and I could do a better job of is get a mentor. The people who do really well that I've found have done really, really well in life, they've had multiple mentors. So someone like Magic Johnson, you know who his mentor was? Dr. Jerry Buss, the gentleman who owned the team.
Wow.
So
Connection.
So, not just connections, but I mean, Magic was drafted by the Lakers. The Lakers were owned by Jerry Buss. Back then, unheard of for a rookie athlete to be hanging out with the owner. But Magic, his dream was to own his own business. So who better to hang out with than Jerry Buss? And then if you are hanging out with him, you're going to meet other people who are on that level. So that's mentors, read, position yourself, be coachable, listen, and stay curious.
So something that like one of my mentors has always said that stuck with me is like thinking of your circles in thirds. Like a third of people like doing what you're doing right now. A third of people, a little bit, 2 or 3 years ahead of where you are to where you want to be,
Yep.
and then a third of people exactly at the space that you want to be, like in 10 or 16 years. Is that something that you've like, executed in your life? When you're finding a mentor, right? Like, what does that process look like as an entrepreneur?
So there are times when I've done it well, and there are times when I haven't done it so well. So your mentor gave you great advice, and the times when I haven't done so well, I'm like, eh. So I have owned like a business before, had a Curves. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of it, but we had like 3 locations, and I spent a lot of time with people who had those types of businesses, and would talk to them, and we would get together, and of course, um, you're always communicating about like, all right, what's working, what's working marketing wise, what's working here. And there were times in my life when I didn't really reach out and ask for help. And I paid the price for that. So that would be the thing that if you want to, like nowadays, like literally, I was just talking to another colleague who owns a business in the neighborhood, and I was like, hey, who are you using for this? And he gave me the name. So I'm like, ask more questions, continue to ask questions. So, and don't get hung up on. I think sometimes what happens is we forget that other people are willing to help, or because we haven't checked in with them, we haven't checked in with our network, we forget who has helped you along the way. So nurturing your network is super important.
And I'm sure you mentioned that everything that you've done hasn't been successful. You mentioned being in a cutthroat environment in sports, which is very similar to the cutthroat environment in entrepreneurship. And then you also mentioned like being coachable and being open to advice. uh, all of that kind of compounded, right? An individual could feel kind of like, oh, I'm doing everything wrong, right? Or I'm making all of these mistakes. If you're so open to, feedback or criticism, or you're comparing yourself to others, how do you kind of, as an entrepreneur, maintain a positive mindset, like with all of the incoming information that you're receiving?
That's a great question. And my thing would say it's opportune things that happen. It's neither good nor bad. I've been getting away from good or bad because sometimes down the road, sometimes I'll give you a great example. This is personal. So I've gone through a divorce. I have 3 children, and my children, one's about to turn 32, the other one's about to turn 30, and the youngest is 26. So back when I was raising them, I would say if you would ask me if I was a good dad, I'd be like, yeah, I'm a great dad. I spend time with them. We do this, we do that. But at the time, I was kind of too too much of a dad, too much not allowing them to have the space to be themselves.
Mhm.
And having gone through a divorce where you're not spending nearly as much time because they're spending more time, you're splitting time.
Yep.
I started listening more, and I started listening to what it is that they wanted versus what I wanted for them. So I would say that I needed that hard reality to open up to become a better dad, to become the dad that I thought I was. Sometimes you get eluded with what you think because you spend time, so the reality was I wasn't a really good dad, and I became better. Now I probably wasn't nearly as bad as I'm describing myself right now, but I look at it, I look at it from a standpoint of, just sometimes when you put yourself in a situation, like, it's not that you didn't do as well as you could have. It's like, what could I have done better? What could I have done better? You make a decision that's business based and you're like, okay, a year from now, and it turned out it made you 50% more. And you're like, okay, that worked, but was that the right decision for that time? And if you say yes, like, good. The following year, you want to do the same thing, but you gather more information, you can make the best decision for that. So it's always, but sooner or later, well, let me just say this: sooner or later, you just have to make a decision. You just can't continue to go, oh, let me keep getting
Right.
information and information and information. As far as learning from mistakes, you're going to make a mistake. And it's like, how fast can you recover from the mistake? So that's the big lesson that sports also teaches you. If I drop a ball, it's like, all right,
Right.
cool, drop the ball, over, done with. I got to be ready for the next play because my teammates need me. You
You
make a
can't live
mistake
in
as
it, right? You have to act.
exactly
Yeah.
right. You can't wallow in it.
Yeah.
If you make a mistake as as a CEO or employee within a company, own up to the mistake, acknowledge it, and says, okay, what did I learn from that mistake, and then move forward.
On the theme of mistakes is, um, I want to ask you a kind of a two-fold question, which is, what would you say was your biggest mistake, and then what would you say was your biggest recovery from a mistake?
Ooh, biggest mistake. Ooh, wow. As I think about my life, I think about different things. So I've done some things where I was going to start a business with someone, but I don't look at it that way. So, like, my biggest mistake, I really don't look at it that way because I
Yeah,
learned from it.
recontextualize it, absolutely.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's more along the lines of, something that I was going to do, from a business standpoint, open up a real estate brokerage office with someone. Ended up like, this cost me money, like a good amount of money, because I changed my mind, and it was too late to get the money back because I did something that was going to be best for my daughter, and meaning, like, so I ended up working in higher education on a college campus, and my daughter was going to be there at that campus. So to me, that was probably the best 4 years for me to invest while being on a campus with her, to support her. And even though she didn't see me every day, but she knew that I was there if she needed me. So to me, that was probably that was, not opening up a brokerage company to shifting and doing something for family. And I think if you look at life now, family, they're going to be there. Our health, most important thing. I mean, you can make a ton of money, but if you don't have the health to spend the money, like, what's the point?
I mean, I think that's really interesting, right? Like, you can, as an entrepreneur, get caught up with a lot of distractions, right? Like, what does it look like in terms of like choosing your priorities as an entrepreneur?
I think you have to you have to know who you are and operate from that space of understanding, operate from strength, of knowing who you are. I know that I'm not real good at bookkeeping. I suck at it. So I should delegate it out, get someone else to do that. So you have to know what you're good at, and know when to delegate and know when to bring on help. And sometimes, even if you're operating as a solopreneur, sometimes you're like, okay, things aren't going great. maybe I should partner up with someone. Maybe there's another business out there in the same space. We could collaborate and come together and work in the same space and leverage each other's talents. So the reason why I say that is because that goes back to my football playing days, or even playing basketball. Teamwork, to me, you can accomplish so much more with teamwork than by yourself.
It makes me think about something that Tess said on one of our previous campfires, which is, collaborating with transparency, and openness, and like what the world can offer you if that's the mindset that you're kind of moving forward with an entrepreneur. Um, Ziz, we have one of the final questions here for you, which is, what is some advice that you often share with entrepreneurs?
Be patient. Be patient. If you make a mistake, learn from the mistake, correct the mistake, and then move forward. So if you look at a football game, you know, you have a game plan going into the game. Halftime is when you're like, okay, that game plan sucked. We need to change, make some changes. You adjust the personnel, make some different types of decisions, and then you just go out and put your best foot going forward. And and that's how I look at things. It's like, don't beat yourself up. Take the lumps, but learn from it. That's the most important thing to do, and get back up. Don't stay down on the ground. Get back up really, really quick. For those of you who have really young children and you're teaching them how to ride a bike,
Mm,
when you took the training wheels off the first time and you're running beside them and you let go, and they had one pedal, two pedals, next thing you know, they fell over. What do? They hop back up. All right, I'm going to do it again. They don't stop. They continue to do it. So I look at failure is just the short step before success. It's like keep getting back up so you can get down to that road or that path where success will be.
I mean, I think that the bike analogy is something that like really rings so true, right?
Yes,
Because if you're so focused on the fact, if you're riding a bike and you're so focused on the fact that you might fall, you can't ride. You're not paying attention. Like,
right.
you know what I mean? Like, so it's interesting that it makes me think about me riding a bike when I was a kid. I failed so many times, but it's gotta get back up and keep going. And I think that
Right.
that's something that is so important. Like, no mistake is so big that you can't try again or do it
Exactly.
better next time, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You overcome it. But most of the time, you just hop back up like you didn't even think about it. But even
Right.
if you were crying, you're like, let me brush myself off and get back up. Let's help me again, mommy or daddy. Let's do this again. And you just go at it. You just go for it.
Um, you know, I mean, I've resonated with so much here. Says you always have so much, so much good to give. We could talk literally for a million years. Um, is there anything that you'd like to leave, this conversation with, leave our entrepreneurs with here today?
Within this community, and that's exactly what you all have done. You've built a really great community and you continue to add to it. You get in what you get out. And if we continue to pour in, you will get what you need out. So I thank you all for what you've done. It's been fun for me. I've learned a ton. And someone like Shadi Amin, who was just taking pictures of us 2 weeks ago, having met her for the first time in person, I'm like, hey, I felt like I've known her. So when you meet someone, you use Discord or LinkedIn or whatever you use to communicate with with a person. When you meet them finally in person, you're like, oh yeah, I do know you. And you've done a great job. So this community has been awesome. Lots of different people, and I look forward to meeting everyone in person at some point.
Uh, I definitely agree. Ziz, thank you so much. I really appreciate everything that you've been able to share with us, guys. Let's give a gift round of applause for Ziz. So share your your funniest thank you or like applause gift into the chat. Everyone seems to already been doing it really
I appreciate that.
fast.
I still need to learn how to do this thing. I don't have gifts. I haven't figured that out yet.
You got it, Ziz. It's just you're just gonna get back on the bike. You fall off. You just gotta get back up there and just like keep on. Joe says slash Giphy. It'll do it for you.
Okay, great,
Slash Giphy.
great.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, guys, we're going to hop to the cafe afterwards. If anyone wants to talk more with Ziz, you can chat with him there for a little bit during that. So thank you so much. Really appreciate everyone joining us in, and we'll be in the cafe if anyone wants to chat with us a little bit more. Thank you, guys. If you'd like to join the Accelerate Collective and attend future campfires, visit accelerateamerica.com/join and check out our future guest at accelerateamerica.com/campfire. Take care.